was up in the study hall, and next minute the door opened, and in walked Norm.
I told everyone to bugger off, get out.
And I went to get up, and he went, "No, you stay." And within one throw, I was on the other side of the room, and then he was just bang, 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 and these big hits. I mean, they were big hits. Norm was just consumed by a rage, by an anger.
I really wanted to kill him, and I most probably would have. And I didn't give a shit. I remember how angry I was, jealous I was. That beating was so harsh, for nothing.
We were both asking ourselves very, very serious questions back then about who we were and where we were going to end up in this life. And we impacted upon each other, and now we're impacting upon each other again.
I started thinking to myself, if you ever crossed paths with money, what would you do? What would you say? My name's Norm Hewitt. You may know me as an ex-All Black.
10 seconds! Hold!
Nowadays, I'm mentoring, coaching.
I'm going to talk about the power of the dream, power of having a dream. Because when I see you, when I look at your faces, all I see is magic.
And shaping leaders in all walks of life.
I was born in 1968, Hastings Hospital. I grew up in a place called Mangaorapa, on the east coast of the North Island, in Central Hawke's Bay, in a little house with brothers and sisters on top of this little valley. You know, there was never any points where we didn't have kai on the table. We didn't have to want for much. My mum's Māori, kahununu and tūwhare tō. My dad is Pākehā, English and Irish. Part of living on the farm was they worked really hard. But they also partied hard too. And that was kind of like, it was normal. It was just what people did. My 5th birthday, all of whānau and everyone came down and they had this massive hangi. And part of my job was to open up the beers for the men. But there was always a bit of froth that came to the top, and the men would go, hey. And I'd just suck that top of that glass. I remember Mum saying that I didn't attend my first day of school because I had a hangover. That was a real pivotal moment where alcohol, that was part of the journey of where it began for me.
Longer. Go! We're going. Up. Twist.
My name's Manu Bennett, and most people would probably know me from my television work.
50 seconds. Knees on the chest.
I started on Xena, and then from there sort of migrated onto Shortland Street, and then went on to do Street Legal, and then came Spartacus, which was sort of a show that took me on, I guess, the world stage. But then Peter Jackson involved me in The Hobbit. Then I got a part on a CW series shot for America called Arrow.
There's always a wall. The idea is to break through the wall.
I was born in New Zealand. I was born in Auckland, but I grew up in Australia. My father's name is Ted Bennett. He was born in Kohupatiki in Clive. He was quite a sportsman. and a musician. His singing career took off, and he actually got a #1 song on the New Zealand charts called Clap Your Hands.
Oh, clap your hands, clap your hands. Oh, clap your hands as you can.
He went along to do a performance at the Blossom Festival in Hastings, and this young beauty queen from Australia had been brought across and was on a float, and he saw her and was smitten. Because my mother was Seventh-day Adventist, she refused to actually do anything on the Saturday, which sort of irked all the organisers. And and my dad was kind of like, wow, who is this woman that sort of says no to this whole event because of her religion? And you know, so he pursued her, and he ended up pursuing her all the way back to Australia. My father's departure to Australia was really frowned upon by my grandparents. You know, him being the eldest son, everything had been invested in my father, and he was at one stage meant to go and study law at university, but he was smitten by my mother, and so followed her to Australia and converted to Seventh-day Adventism, which was a big shock for my grandparents. They were very staunch with the Anglican Church. I grew up in Australia with really no identity at all in terms of my Maori heritage. Everything was more just about adapting to the Australian lifestyle.
When I was small, it was like the whole world was just one big happy playground. As I started getting older, I started realising that this world wasn't right. I remember being at a party and Dad accused Mum of getting a bit friendly in a conversation with somebody. He piled us in the car and we went home. Before we even got out of the car, Dad's punched Mum in the face. And Mum's calling out my dad's name. And it's actually how she said it. And I remember the first time. And it was the way she said it. It was that real deepness in her voice, like, not in front of the kids. In those moments, her mum would say things like, "Is that all you can do?" And I used to think to myself, "Mum, shut up." Afterwards, I'd see my dad crying and he'd be apologising to Mum and he'd tell him much how he loved my mum, and then it would happen again. And I think I was around 8 or 9 years old when I decided, Dad, you're full of shit.
People acknowledge me as a Hollywood actor, a celebrity, but they don't get some of the mess that still is involved in my life. Everybody's got a tough story there somewhere. I think you'd have to be 1 in 100 to get away in this life without having problems. My father was a champion athlete. Get me up at the crack of dawn and I'd be out running.
As a young boy, we got him involved in athletics and he excelled at that. He went right to the top level, competing in Australian championships at primary school age and then eventually at high school age.
My father really developed me to be someone who could believe in being able to attain anything.
When I got a hiding from my dad, I was 9 years old. Dad came home angry from work and I don't know why he was angry. I remember Dad calling us into the lounge and standing there and thinking to myself, today I'm not going to cry. I remember Dad smacking me around the legs, and I remember it stung. I could feel that line of that heat coming from that belt. I could feel my legs starting to throb, and Dad saw that I didn't cry or flinch, and this infuriated my dad. So with all his might, he smacked me as hard as he could. And this one came around my face and smacked me on the side of the face. And I'm on the floor, and I'm thinking to myself, it's all over, I can go. But my dad doesn't stop. I remember looking into my dad's eyes, and I knew at that moment he couldn't stop. I remember waking up the next day and going to the bathroom and looking in the mirror and seeing my face, having a wash and thinking to myself, everything's going to be okay. And the mirror is showing me something that is not okay. I remember going down into the kitchen and my mum taking one look at me and she started to cry. And we always used to walk to school together, all us kids, but this day my brothers and sisters left me alone. And I got to school and my best friend come running up to me and took one look at me and looked at the ground and he walked away. No teachers, no adults, no kids said anything. Why did they stay silent? And the silence hurt more than the belt.
Yeah, I wrote this song for my brother. It was a song that, hello you, what are you doing hiding behind there? You want to come and sit next to Daddy? I'm gonna show you a song. You want to come and sit next to Daddy? Come on. Through the age of about 12 to the age of 15, there was a lot of heartache in our family. Yeah, I wrote this song. There's a song about your uncle, Uncle Stephen. My brother ended up, at the age of 18, having a car accident. Brother, did I tell you that I woke the other night crying like a schoolboy? I thought I saw you in the line 6 feet ahead. I remember waking up at like 3 o'clock in the morning, this police officer at the front door saying that, he'd been in an accident and he was in intensive care. And he was so super fit. My brother was an incredible athlete of his own right, and I think that only because of how strong he was, he survived the accident. But he fell into a coma. And I think that night really marked a change in this wonderful free childhood I'd had. All of a sudden it became, very much focused upon my brother's injuries. How I cried when I heard the news, boy. I never knew life could be so cruel. My mother blamed herself because she allowed my brother to go driving on this particular night to this party. He was on his L plates. He'd argued with my mother. I remember the argument, actually, and my mother, she gave in, and off he went. We're all climbing that stairway. Stephen's climbing that stairway to heaven. Here's Steve here. He's my brother. That's me. That's the same age as my kids here.
Around 10, I started pushing the boundaries. I'd be really disruptive at school. Teachers would stick me in the corner in the desk all by myself.
I became really selfish and really angry at school.
And any time I played up, it was like, you wait till you get to secondary school, boy, they'll sort you out. I'm 13 years old, year's 1982. My brother went to Te Aute College, and I suppose that's where we were going to go. I remember it was like this massive adventure. No one knew anything about me. We got shown to our dormitories. We had to pull a clean hanky out and show our clean nails, that they were clipped appropriately. Shoes were polished. It was really orderly. And then I remember the seniors coming back. And then we realised we were right down the bottom of the food chain. Very quickly, we had seniors choose their nods. And the choosing of a third former means that you did everything for that senior. And I was this nod to the senior who treated me, I felt really well. It was like I was his little brother. I'd get to do odd jobs. I had little privileges within those jobs. I had this kind of protection there that others weren't allowed to pick on me because I was the nod of that senior. Everything just seemed to be going really, really well. I started loving school. One of the things that the nod did was to be the human hot water bottle, I suppose. So you would get into the beds to warm the bed up for the senior. And when he came back, you jumped into your own bed. I would be invited to top and tail. And this one night I remember this boy who I saw as a big brother type person. He interfered with me, yeah. And I remember freezing. I had my hands to the side, and I was staring at the roof. I could hear a scream inside me, but I couldn't scream. I couldn't do anything. So it was my first ever sexual experience. I remember the day that I went down and told the prefect that this was going on. And I remember telling this prefect, and nothing changed. If anything, it got worse. Being sexually abused, my whole world had been tipped upside down. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what I was. I'd jump out my bedroom window at night time and I'd go and sit by the bell until I felt it was safe to go back into my bedroom. And I remember this older boy walking past. Kevin Hines was the senior, and he said to me, "What are you doing?" I didn't answer him, and the next thing he said to me, "Do you want a punch in the head?" And I went, "No." "Why are you here?" I felt something that gave me the courage to actually share with him. So he said, "Follow me. Every night you'll come over and you can sleep on my floor. And that will never happen to you ever again." And that moment on, that senior boy never touched me. put more effort into my training. I started fighting. Gavin taught me how to fight. We'd punch each other up. I remember smacking him one day pretty hard. It was the day he gave me a pair of scissors. He said, "I want you to stab me." And I remember raising it and stabbing him in the arm. And I remember him putting a towel on his arm, looking at me, and he goes, "You'll be all right now." And from that point on, I became the bully.
This is Radio Australia News. Investigators say there's another suspect behind
When I was
this week's bombing.
14, 15 years old, we got hit by a drunk driver.
When the car accident occurred, Jean hit her head on the door. I reached across and I thought she was okay. And then I jumped out of the car and ran around the back to have a look at Manu. When I opened the back doors, he wasn't there. Somehow he'd been thrown out of the vehicle through the small opening, and I looked around the car, calling out his name, and suddenly I saw him about 50 metres away from the vehicle.
When I woke up on the road, I just had the taste of blood and I felt my life going. I thought I was dying. I had this pins and needles feeling. My father sort of leaned down and he looked at me and I said, "Oh, it's my time, isn't it? It's happened to me as well." And then I remember just passing out.
I thought he had died. I returned to my wife. I went to pat my wife on the head, and she moved her head away. But later on, I found she moved her head because of the pressure that was being exerted on her brain. Manu's facial injuries were quite extensive at the time. Even though they weren't life-threatening. He had bad scarring down the side of his face where he'd obviously skidded across the road, and he had scars across his eyes as well. Unfortunately, in hospital, I had to turn my wife's life support machine off. Jean was, first of all, a very beautiful lady. She was beautiful not only on the outside, but on the inside as well. There is a softness about Manu when, in very intimate moments, he will reach out to other people. And that sort of gentleness in Manu's character, I think, characterises the gentleness that was in Jean's character. Unfortunately, Stephen also passed away 1 month after his mother's death.
My brother had been in a coma for 3 years, and I went to the hospital, and my family had been there overnight, and they all went and took a bit of a break, and I went in there alone, and I held him in my arms, and he passed away in my hands. He was the idol of my grandparents and my parents. I guess in many ways, maybe I tried to live up to my brother's kind of status. After the car accidents, they were buried at Ko-Partiki Park.
I was an emotional wreck at the time. And so the decision was made between me and my parents that we would send him to Te Ate College because we thought that was a safe haven from which he could recover from the traumas that he had been through.
They told me that my great uncles and that had attended this Maori boys' school. It was a very strong, school for building Maori leaders, and it all sounded wonderful.
Te Aute College, we're renowned as one of the greatest rugby schools. To represent Te Aute was the pinnacle. I look at 87 as being the year where I will be potentially captain of the first 15, and that's when I could really make my mark. And then Manu turned up. And he was a threat.
I remember the first day arriving at Te Aute, my grandparents both came. It was a proud moment for them. You could feel the strength. I could feel the strength immediately at Te Aute.
He was introduced to the school as from the Bennett families, was a well-renowned name in the Māori community. He was tall, he was built, he played the piano. He could fit into different worlds that I didn't know anything about.
There'd been some comments made that I had the Australian record for hurdles, and they were looking forward to my presence at Te Aute as an athlete. 2 weeks into arriving at Te Aute, the principal gave me a position in the first 15. I'd never played rugby union before.
I just went, no. Just hold on a minute here, buddy. You haven't done the hard yards. Who do you think you are?
You know, I remember he just came up and I think he grabbed me. And within one throw, I was on the other side of the room. He was coming at me like he was just bang.
And he was saying something to me, something about his mother dying and all this kind of crap.
And I remember just thinking that maybe that would placate him, but instead he just looked down at me and he went, "I don't care." He came in with another kick to the face.
And then within a split second, I was totally out of control. Because something had just taken over me and I just couldn't stop. If it wasn't for those boys who came and pulled me off, said that was enough, you can stop.
And I remember trying to hide in the infirmary for a couple of days. I remember the guys coming in going, "You better come out now. We're going to start training for the first 15. We're all going to be up at 5 a.m. in the morning running." And I remember I just didn't want to see Norm. I just didn't want to see this guy. He was so aggressive.
But I had to. There was no hiding.
As far as I was concerned, it needed to be done. I dealt with what I needed to deal with, and he fell into line, and we're all good. He wasn't important to me anymore.
I mean, I've always thought back at the moment, I've thought, why didn't I stand up? You know, why didn't I try to do something to defend myself? But at the time, I just think I was a mess. At the time, I just think, I was already in such an embattled state as a young person.
One of the great things that came out of it was that I had to focus on my fitness, on doing well for the first 15 at Te Aute. In doing that, it probably distracted me from all of this pain that I could have been going through, maybe moping over my mother and brother's passing. I ended up going back to Australia. I was amongst my friends again, this home environment, and I decided not to go back to Te Aute. But I didn't want to have to prove myself to Norm Hewitt. When I look at my acting career, I've played some extraordinarily tough roles. all of those characters were kind of based on my experience starting with Tiote. I can't say all of this is due to Norm Hewitt and this incident at Tiote College, but it was definitely a catalyst of change.
When I became an All Black, I was still behaving the way I was at Tiote. And in 1999, I lost so much control.
Tonight's top story, tears as an All Black admits he's battling booze. Norm Hewitt says he has a serious drinking problem. He was involved in a drunken incident in Queenstown on Friday night.
My personal circumstances have worsened my abuse of alcohol and to my family. I am truly sorry.
Coming home and being put in front of the media and apologising to my family was the first time I'd owned it. For Arlene, who became my angel, she showed me the light of hope. And I made a promise to her that I'd never behave like this again. I knew from that moment exactly what I had to do. I stopped everything. I didn't drink, and I haven't drunk since.
I remember seeing Norm on Dancing with the Stars. I remember watching the television going, oh, there's Norm. Norm who punched me in the face and stomped on my head. And then he did his haka. I thought, who is this man? Who is he? Who is this guy? Because that's cool. It's really cool. I hate him, but I love him. Look at him. Go for it.
I saw Manu on the Arrow. I think I felt humiliation. And I started thinking to myself, what would you do if you ever crossed paths with Manu? What would you say?
I was sitting in the airport, going down to shoot my last session with Peter Jackson on The Hobbit, which I'd based on Norm.
And as I was walking in, here's Manu. I walk past and I think to myself, so boy, here's your moment.
And I hear this, Manu. And I knew straight away it was Norm. I hadn't seen him since I was 17, 18 years old.
And as Manu looked up, he went, Norm.
And he was looking at me, and I knew there was a different story going on. And we just leaned in and we hongied.
It was the absolute humility of the way Manu looked at me and he said my name. He said, Norm, it's really good to see you. I said to him, Manu, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for that moment, that I hurt you so much.
And I could see this man who was wanting that kind of change that comes in life. And at that moment, we healed.
I asked if it was okay if we get together, bring our families together. Go back to the place where it all began, Tiote College.
Hey, buddy, how? Oh, this is my dad, Ted.
I want to show my son, lead my son, that we have to have these conversations.
Wow. Whakatangata kia ka. Here we are, brother.
This is their driveway.
Oh. Wow.
I remember running down there in the school doing the haka. I really don't know what to expect, but I know the place has changed so much since those days. And it's important to look at what's in the future, not hang on to the past.
Wow, we have to travel this far to understand the past, eh? It's incredible.
Ko take tumata waka. Ko tama te aere kinu te kahautu. Ko ruwhara te tohunga. Ko pakawata awa. Ko Ngāti kahununu te iwi ti he Māori ora.
Te Aute of today is definitely not the Te Aute of past. And I'm meeting with two men who are instrumental in that change.
The work that we're doing now is to make sure that what the traditions that are good at Te Aute are maintained, but the ones that don't align with what's acceptable, that we work really hard to make sure that they aren't part of Te Aute today. Boys did the right thing because they were scared they were going to get a crack, but we are changing that, so they're doing the right thing because they respect what Te Aute is about.
I thought it was really important to look at where that motto, whakatangata kia kaha, came from, because it had often been used, I think, as some explanation of some unacceptable, macho, even violent behaviour. It's from the Bible, but it's part of a longer quote. Kuchi, like men, be strong, and whatever you do with love. And I think that actually changes the whole focus of that motto. I'm just really excited about the change.
You know, this was it.
This is where you come in?
Yep.
Yeah, I was sitting over there. I was sitting in that far side over there. I think that's where I looked up at you and I said, hey, what are you doing? My mum's just died, what are you doing?
And I said, I don't care. I have never wanted to go back to that space ever again. And, you know, it reminded me of what it was like looking into my father's eyes when he was standing over me, and I knew he couldn't stop.
Standing outside that classroom and reflecting on it together, I was amazed at how that ill feeling, it disappeared, as it should. You know, it's amazing how these things that we carry around with weight, and they're only weighty because they're important.
Confronting the moments is to be able to own what the boy done as a man today, and own it in a way that I've learned in humility. And when you understand humility in its truest form, you can stand true as a man.
Which is my Te Aute first 15 jersey, you know, a sports jacket. I haven't worn it with confidence, that is, at all since walking out of the gates of Te Aute. And finally, after this engagement with Norm again, I'm able to put it on. I'm on my way back to Kohopariki now to see my mother and brother's grave at the Urupa, and it suddenly dawned upon me that part of the whole experience at Te Aute was that I never really got to mourn their passing. This is This is one of my... It's a long way from Hollywood. And it's not until you come home and you stand on the ground that is connected to your family, connected to your tipuna, that you really realize who you are. And it's very confrontational. I mean, I thank Norm. I thank Norm for bringing closure.
Crossing Manu's path was taking me down to the place that I needed to be. And that's ultimately back to my father.
I never ever understood your life growing up because we never talked about it.
Yeah, just about every night Dad used to come home with his flagon in bed, sit there and drink his flagon, then get abusive to Mum, and I just got sick of it in the end. And one night I said, stop hitting Mum, and he chased me and I hid under the bed and he pulled me out and gave me such a thrashing I thought I was going to die. You know, I had no role model to show me it was different. But I had a grandmother that really loved me, you know.
She was really good. Yeah.
I know this is hard, Dad.
No, but thinking back, man, what an a-hole
But
I
it's
was,
good though that we talk, you
Yeah,
know.
but I mean, it should never have happened.
But it has happened.
Oh, yeah.
And the other best thing is to, once you talk about it, it makes you feel better. It doesn't mean to say that I don't love you less.
But I reckon there was a long time,
heaps.
long time there, Mum, there was this resentment there because in the fear of this violence that was going on at home.
It was.
This isn't about a ridicule or a pointing the finger. You are not the same man you used to be. You're a totally different man. This generation, this violence stops here. So that part of our whānau stops with me. So Alexander will never grow up with the world of violence that I grew up in. Love you too.
And I love you both.
The moment of my dad and I hugging and feeling this weight lift was something that it's very difficult to describe. And I know right from that moment, everything was going to change. And everything has changed. This is about family. This is about healing. Going back to Te Aute, finding those pieces that are enabling us to be better at who we are.
You know, a lot of men just stay in the ignorance of violence. They stay in the ignorance of being the bully. You can't get beyond your own wall of toughness to step forward and make amends for mistakes.
It's been about ownership for me, but ultimately it's the power of forgiveness and the healing that comes from that power.
I'm glad the two of us have been through some hard knocks and that we're now sharing this experience with others.
Now I know who I am, what my purpose is, and I stand strong with a whānau who's prepared to walk that every day.
Supporting local content so you can see more of New Zealand on air.